Sup, boys? It's Figured, and we're gonna have an honest and frank discussion about the state of consumables in Turtle WoW. I've gathered all the wisest shamans together with me to talk about this. Okay, and the reason this has like come up as an issue is because like the progression rating scene with like Kara 40 is going on. I've been watching like the world first stuff. I've been seeing the consumable usage on these guilds. I've been seeing like the new consumables that have been added to the game with Turtle WoW, and I think it's time that we really just get a consistent philosophy and really iron out what we want consumables to be like in Turtle WoW. What do we want from them? Because I feel like it's kind of unorganized. It's a mess. It doesn't seem like there's a consistent philosophy. It doesn't seem like we have an idea of what we want to achieve with them. It just appears confused from the outside looking in, and you'll see what I mean as I explain further. So, first of all, I just want to say like consumables are a big part of the vanilla game. And a big part, like, it's a big part of raiding, but it's also a big part of, like, other things like leveling and, like, stuff like that. Like, consumable usage is one of the things that really, like, distinguishes vanilla from later versions of the game. You know, you kind of have all these items that kind of round out your character and allow you to achieve, like, cool things in combat that you weren't really, like, capable of before. And, you know, it kind of, like, it's an element of, like, kind of getting prepared before the fight. It can be like a good gameplay loop, and it can be rewarding. And I want to preserve some of that. I don't want to like oversimplify consumables in Turtle WoW. I don't want to make it like in TBC they kind of standardized consumables. They were kind of like they introduced things like the Battle and Guardian Elixir system, right? They really simplified things, and it was. You know, it was probably a good choice in many ways, but, you know, I feel like it's not really in the spirit of vanilla to do something that drastic to consumables. I don't want to go like full TBC system. You know, I feel like there's some good, uniquely vanilla gameplay to be preserved when it comes to like using consumables. And I just want to like... But we got to be like, I want us to be deliberate and serious and actually scrutinize and be like, is this a positive thing for the game? Not really. We can probably adjust this consumable or remove this consumable or not allow this consumable to stack with the other consumable, etc., etc. Right? It's not. I think we need a game plan. The developers need to sit down, hammer it out. And look, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not saying I've got it all figured out. I'm just saying, like, if I was a developer for Turtle WoW, I'd be like, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to iron this out right now. And we're going to disagree and we're going to have conversations. And there are going to be people who've played this game for 15 years who are going to disagree with what we eventually end up doing. And that's okay, right? As long as there's some sort of, like, plan or vision for them, I think that's what matters, because I don't see it seems confused and it seems a bit all over the place. So in the vanilla game there was already a ton of consumables. Consumables were already very powerful. I mean, people bring up the example of you know, you could wear a shield and get 2,000 armor, or you could just drink a stone shield potion. The kind of amazing like difference between drinking a stone shield potion versus not drinking a stone shield potion on many raid encounters for tanks is like dramatic and ridiculous. And people also bring up the difference of like Flask of Supreme Power right now in vanilla is stronger than a flask from Wrath of the Lich King. You know, it's stuff like this. Like, consumables are obviously like consume a lot of the potential power budget of players when you're trying to design like new raid content. So when you have some truly insane, truly dedicated players, like these Chinese roster guilds who are raiding in shifts, just popping like a full buff bar of consumables every single pull. Kind of becomes hard to balance for the people who aren't doing that, or are doing that but to a lesser extent, or whatever, right? It's kind of hard to make a fight that feels appropriately difficult and right for someone who's popping a stone shield every single time they tank it versus someone who is not doing that. So there's like a serious like dramatic like tuning problem, and it's not just a tuning problem, it's also like it's another thing to factor in when you're doing tuning as well. It's another thing that's like kind of in your mind as a designer. It's like, well, couldn't they just use this consumable, and then like this damage that I thought was tuned quite aggressively and quite threateningly suddenly becomes not so threatening, you know? So there is a design kind of burden to having so many consumables in the game, right? Because it's like when shit comes to shovel, you've either got to tune the thing assuming they have it or assuming that they don't have it. So there is a cost, like a game design related cost to putting and having so many consumables active in the game. So consumables are already like very good in vanilla. I think even in Nax design, we started to see fights designed around consumable usage. I think the idea of doing things like patchwork without Titans and Stone Shield, or like lower Theb without greater shadow protection potions, is just a non-starter, right? Like, I mean, it can be trivialized by a number of other things like world buffs and you know, later class balance added by Turtle WoW. But I'm saying, like, when Nax was released, when Nax was designed, it was designed assuming that stuff was there, right? So it's already a lot, and it's already like powerful and very, very present in the game. And Turtle WoW have started adding their own buffs. They've added the Merlots, which are like stronger alcohol buffs that give you more stamina. They added another Merlot that gives you intellect for like casters, which is kind of weird. And they added like new elixirs. We got like new 1 hour elixirs. We got like Dream Shard elixirs. This gives 2% critical and 15 spell power. We added some new like... We added like Dream Tonic. This is spell damage by 35 for 20 minutes. It's basically Greater Arcane Elixir, but it's 20 minutes instead of an hour, and it stacks. I mean, we've got all these wild like food buffs. We've got like this one, for instance, is 2% haste. I use it while healing. I use it while DPSing. They're both good. So yeah, like we've added a variety of food buffs. We've added all these new elixirs, these new things, and we've tried to make like old consumables more relevant by like buffing them. Recently they buffed Flask of Chromatic Resistance, for instance. I don't have that in my bag, but let's just search fucking Flask of Chromatic. Yeah, like, look at this. It's now like 50 for 2 hours instead of... So even like old items that were kind of like whack or not balanced that well, they've kind of buffed them and made them more relevant. And it's starting to get to the point where you really have to ask yourself, how many consumables is too many consumables? Is it really appropriate that all these consumables stay relevant for max level characters like forever? Like, my favorite example of this is Elixir of Fortitude. So we've got a level 25 elixir that just increases your health by 120. Now, it's not that powerful, but because it's a health buff, and health is universally helpful to have, and because it's an hour-long buff and it persists through death, many raiders feel like they just, as an obligation, have to drink this level 25 elixir from now until the end of time. And, you know, as a game developer, I really have to, when I put my game developer hat on, I'm like, well, is this really what we want for the game? Do we really want people to be consuming Elixir of Fortitude from now to the end of time? Do we really want to tune every raid fight in the game, assuming that people are just running around with an Elixir of Fortitude on them all the time? Is this? Are we just adding like a bit of busy work? Like it's not like these things are expensive or particularly inconvenient, but are we just adding like? I feel like we're adding complexity through the sheer number of different consumables without actually adding much depth to the game, right? When you add things to the game, you want to add things that actually create depth, that create choices, that create like interesting moments for your players. And if you're adding things that make things more complex without making them more deep, I have to ask, what's the point of this consumable? I mean, this elixir of fortitude can still exist. I just think like it's kind of inappropriate that it's being used all the time at like max level by every raider because there's no opportunity cost really, besides the minor gold consume whatever time penalty of like crafting and distributing and selling and buying and fucking around with it, right? So, or just putting it in your bags. So it's just like a no-brainer choice, but you know, is it really adding anything to the game to have this in the game? You know, how much is too much? How many fucking little consumables are we gonna have? And you know, do I really have to, like, if someone's new to raiding, this is also an accessibility problem. If someone's new to raiding, they're just not familiar with all this bullshit, and I have to like explain to them what to get. I give them a fucking shopping list of shit to get, and it's just like needlessly long, and it's just like, I feel like I should be able to explain all the consumes you bring to raid in like a few sentences. I shouldn't have to make a fucking spreadsheet and link it to you so you can understand how to like play the fucking game. You know, it becomes an accessibility issue. It becomes a and it's not really adding anything to the game. And you know, I contrast that with the consumables that actually add something to the game. So you've got potions that are on a 2-minute cooldown, and the potions are mutually exclusive. You know, you've got lips, you've got major manners, you've got major health potions, you've got stone shield, which I think, you know, is I think stone shield in particular is a bit overtuned, and you know, it's kind of has a negative interaction with the fact that the armor cap is kind of low now. I think tanking would probably be for the better if it was redesigned, assuming with a significantly lesser powered stone shield, or stone shield was simply removed. I don't know. But like these 2-minute potion cooldowns and how you might use them differently for different fights, I feel like that's an interesting and engaging use of consumables in the game. I think more consumables should be like that. I kind of like this the way they did the same thing with tea. You have like tea, and you have like demonic runes, and you have like they used to be health stones, but they don't share a cooldown anymore. Health stones are their own cooldown now. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like choosing between tea and using a demonic rune is an interesting and like good gameplay choice. I feel like these are the more of the consumables I want to see in the game. You know, I want to see more things like lip or lucidity potion even. Or FAP or stuff like that. Like I feel like those are like good consumables, and they're like a net positive that they're in the game, as opposed to something like, you know, elixir of fortitude here, right? So it's I feel like that's just another thing. And like another reason I have to like link the spreadsheet and it's inaccessible to players is because what stacks? You know, what determines what stacks and does not stack in this game, okay? There's no rules. There's no system to it. You just have to know. So, for instance, here's a Blasted Lands buff. We got Cerebral Cortex Compound. Now, there's Blasted Lands buffs for all the primary attributes, right? You got a Strength one, you got an Agility one, you got a Stamina one, Intellect, and Spirit one, okay? So, and you can only get one. So that's one layer of knowledge. Okay, you can only get one of these 5 base attributes. And you might think, well, I'm a tank, I'm just going to grab stamina. Well, don't do that, you fucking bozo, because there's this other buff that increases your spirit and stamina by 50 for 2 hours. And that doesn't stack with the blast. If you get the Blasted Lands stamina buff, you can't get this stamina buff. So but you can get this stamina buff and say the Blasted Lands strength, agility, or intellect. How the fuck would you know that? You wouldn't. It's just something you have to know. It's just a burden of knowledge. It's not like I'm more skilled at the game. It's just some weird arbitrary rule you have to familiarize yourself with when you raid on this server. It's just something you have to know. And, even more confusing, let's look up a little consumable called Elixir of the Sages. Okay? Elixir of the Sages. This is a 1 hour elixir that gives you intellect and spirit for an hour. This is useless. This doesn't stack with arcane intellect and divine spirit. It's useless. It's garbage. There's no point in getting this consumable. I don't even know why it's selling for as much as it's selling. All right? I guess you just rip off a bunch of bozos. All right? There's not many auctions here, to be fair. But Elixir of the Sages. This is a completely useless elixir, and it's just something you have to know. Like, why is the 18 intellect increase from Elixir of the Sages stack with the intellect increase from Arcane Intellect for mages, right? But this 25 intellect from Cerebral Cortex Compound doesn't scale, actually does stack with Arcane Intellect. Again, it's just something you have to know. It's just an arbitrary burden of knowledge. And does this add anything to the game? I don't think so. I think we need consistent rules for how this works. Here's another one that really annoys me. We got a new healing consumable in Kara 40. We've got Empowering Healing Herbal Salad. Okay, Empowering Herbal Salad is described like every other food buff in the game. Must remain seated while eating. If you spend at least 10 seconds eating, you will become well fed and gain blah 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 blah. Now, a lot of food buffs in this game are mutually exclusive. If you get one well-fed buff, it doesn't stack with another well-fed buff. They override each other. So that's like the rule. That's how it makes sense. But for some reason, there are just arbitrary exceptions where they don't stack. There's I think the ranged attack power one doesn't stack as well. I don't know. I don't play a hunter in raids. I main one character. I don't know this for certain, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And this healing food buff just fully stacks with this haste buff. So there's no reason not to use both. But, from just reading the tooltip, there is no indication, there is no way for me to discern that these two buffs stack without I just have to know. I just have to know this. It's just another thing I have to know. It's stupid. It's completely arbitrary. And, people this is the thing, man. People get invested in games. They think a game is good. They learn about a game. They learn all these little intricacies and rules. And they think this is depth. But it's not. It's not depth. It's just idiocy, right? It's just complexity. It's just another thing that gets in the way of a newer player learning things and engaging with the game, right? In my opinion, if it's going to say you become well-fed and well-fed buffs don't stack, then they should all not stack, right? That's it. I'm just asking for some consistency. I just like it so I can read a tooltip for an item and understand what the fuck is going on. Or establish rules so that I can understand what the fuck is going on. Reading the item tooltip should explain the item. I shouldn't need to go off and test if these things will stack. It's stupid. Okay? Even outside of the stacking issue, we really have to ask how much busy work and logistics do we want? So I look at this Elixir of Fortitude, it's not expensive. It's not going to stop me. It's not going to be prohibitive. It's not going to stop me from raiding. It's not going to be oh man, I need to go farm gold to afford these fucking elixirs of fortitude, dude. But, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. I have to remember all this shit. I have to keep it all in my head. I have to put it in the bank and bring it out of the bank. And, like transfer it back and forth and like, I don't have enough bag slots. I can't pick up the fucking quest item from the raid boss because my bags are full of gear and full of, you know what I mean? It's just like, how much logistics and how much busy work do we really want in the game? I feel like we should keep this to a sane level. Now, I'm kind of insane and just have my consumes in my bag all the time. And just have like everything keybound, and I'm like cooked. I'm ridiculous. Okay, I'm a ridiculous player, but there's a reason for that ridiculousness, and the reason is it makes logistics for me simpler to permanently occupy my bags with like the item, and I can notice when I'm running low on the item and I need to restock my bags for actual like combat use and stuff, right? And this is a thing. I don't feel like I feel like missing out on a hard progression boss kill because the logistics of fucking around with too many consumables is annoying, is lame. I think it's stupid. I think it should be like there should be some like general consumables you use all the time, and it's fairly like limited, or at least there's like a choice. So there's like a trade-off. They don't all stack with each other. I'm making interesting gameplay choices about how I want this consumable and not this consumable. I think that's the best way to do it. And then you can have like specific fights where it's like, oh man, lucidity potion? Yeah, that shit's actually baller on this specific fight. I can have stuff like, the greater arcane protection potion is baller for this specific fight. And stuff like that. But like, yeah, just having like a massive laundry list of buffs and the busy work that it creates, it's just unnecessary. I just, like, do we really need all this stuff? And another thing that gets my goat is the inconsistent durations. Like, I've got 2-hour-long flasks, I've got hour-long elixirs, and I've got 30-minute weapon oils. These all persist through death. Okay, cool. Okay, alright. That makes sense, I guess. And then I have a bunch of other shit that doesn't persist through death that are all different durations as well. I've got food buff that's 15 minutes. I've got alcohol buff that's like 10 minutes. Oh, this is 15 actually. This alcohol buff's 15. Other alcohol buffs are 10. I don't know. Like, consistency? Fuck that. Me and my homies hate consistency. Alright? Like, it's just actually, like, it's so silly. Like, I'm in the middle of the raid and I want to go hard and full consume. And it's just like, I just forget that my buff has dropped off. And it's like, I got to do this busy work again. It's just, can we get some consistency up in this bitch? Can we just, like, make everything like an hour or like 30 minutes? Like, please? Like, even if we have to increase the mat cost. And then there's just like, oh yeah, here's another one. Here's Dream Tonic. Dream Tonic, dude. So we made the exact same consumable as Greater Arcane Elixir. Literally the exact same consumable. They're a clone. 35 spell damage. They stack. But this one doesn't persist through death. This one's more annoying to get. You gotta go to Hyjal specifically to get it and then fuck around. And this one, only lasts 20 minutes instead of an hour. Because fuck you, I mean, there's no situation where you want to drink the Greater Arcane Elixir where you're also not like, well, I wouldn't also want to not drink this. The only reason not to drink this is the logistics of getting it, or the gold cost of getting it, or the inconvenience of it doesn't persist through death, it doesn't last as long. That's the only barrier to like using this. It's just like, what's the fucking point? I don't fucking understand. Like, I don't, like, what are we getting out of this, really? And one other point I want to bring up is, because of this inconsistency in design and like what stacks and what doesn't stack, and how you don't need to like make choices a lot of the time, and a lot of the time shit just does do stack. It does do stack anyway. Whatever. My point is hybrid classes. So you've got like prop paladins, right? And it's like, okay, the prop paladin, when he's gearing, he gets like stamina and he gets like spell power and like some avoidance shit, blah, 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 right? But then you get to the fucking... Then you get to the... Then you get to, like, your consumables, and it's like, well, why don't I get Juju Might or whatever? I don't know. I don't play Melee. Juju... you can't buy Juju Mites. They're fucking soulbound. But why don't I get, like, a melee attack power Juju? Like, I know I scale like shit with strength. I know that, like, 99% of my threat is, like, fucking holy damage. And I have a threat modifier on holy damage. But why don't I just get 30 fucking strength? Fuck it. Why don't I just get it? You know, why not? And then you end up in this ridiculous situation where the average raider is consuming, like, 4 elixirs. And then the prop paladin over here is like, yeah, I'm drinking the melee elixir, I'm drinking the caster elixir, I'm drinking this, that. And then they've got, like, they go over the 32 buff cap. And then because they go over the 32 buff cap, the game starts, like, bugging out and can't really track it because this is a fucking 1.12 client. It gets, like, weird shit starts happening once you go above 32 buffs. I'm not going to get into all the stuff that happens, but weird stuff starts happening, okay? And it's just like, when we designed the paladin, did we really assume that the power budget for the spec is going to include 15 different fucking consumables they can all use? Because why the fuck not, right? Why not get some melee crit? Why not get this attack power? Why not get this and stack it with this health, with this armor, with this spell damage? You know, it just gets to the point of, like, ridiculousness with hybrids. Like, what reason do you have as an enhancement shaman not to go full spell power consumables, right? It's like the hybrid classes are getting disproportionately powerful because we've just got this, we're just inundated with this huge, like, number of consumables that can all stack and work independently. And they just happen to be a class that can use pretty much fucking everything, even if it's not really actually making a big difference, right? Individually, they don't make a big difference, but when they're all stacked together, they do make a big difference, actually. It gets to the, you know, I was watching, like, the world first stuff, and these guilds, I mean, they're burning, like, thousands of gold a pull. Like, unironically, like, you wipe and they lost, like, 1,000 gold worth of consumables and bullshit and, repair costs and all that. And I'm just like, at some point, you kind of have to save players from themselves, right? Sometimes players will do incredibly stupid, unfun things if it will mean that they get a little bit better or a little bit more powerful, or they progress a little bit further, right? Or they get a little bit closer to winning. The key to good game design is to make the things that make you win enjoyable to do. Make the process of winning enjoyable. If you have a game where the most effective way to play is to do something safe, repetitive, and boring, like 20,000 times, and then you just instantly steamroll any challenge in your way, it's kind of a lame game. It's kind of bad. You know, the player will actually do that, and then they'll beat the game, and then they'll say, oh, this game sucks. Players are like their own worst enemy. You kind of have to protect players from killing themselves with consumables like this. You know, you kind of have to stop players from doing dumb stuff and, like, hurting themselves with scissors sometimes as a developer. You can't make the most effective way to play a game be thoroughly unfun. And, I just see those Chinese guilds, those world first guilds, the insane buff bar of consumables that they're popping every single attempt. And I'm just like, dear Lord, somebody bail these people the fuck out, you know? And yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, that has a huge, like, knock-on effect on, like, raid tuning. Do we assume that they're going to pop absolutely everything under the sun? Can the developers of the raid encounters themselves even remember all the shit in the fucking game that they could potentially pop? Because I don't. You know, I watch these streams and I'm like, oh yeah, that consumable exists. I forgot about that. I've been playing this game for fucking years and years. That was in the original vanilla game, and I've still forgot about that. Like, let alone the shit that TWOW's been adding. Like, holy fuck. So, look, I've gone on a crazy rant. The point is this. We want to get something out of the consumables we add to the game. I don't want to go full TBC system. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I am saying it's a fucking mess and we need to sort it out. Otherwise, we're going to be drowned in a bunch of insane busy work for very little actual gameplay payoff, right? So I think it's time that the TWOW developers really have a hard conversation about this, really hash this out, and are like, guys, what are we going to achieve with consumables? At the very least, it needs to be transparent. It needs to be transparent. I need to know what shit stacks with other shit. There should be more mutually exclusivity, and I should know what the rules for the mutual exclusivity is. So there isn't just a million consumes popped on one guy because he can use them all because he's an enhancement shaman, right? I want less of the consumables that are just like busy work, get them just because on every single class all the time, like Elixir of Fortitude. I want more interesting gameplay choices, right? Do I want this consumable? Do I want that consumable? I don't really care for this consumable. I care more for that consumable. I think that this is a sick consumable to use in this specific context, on this specific encounter, right? That's more of what I want to see. I don't want to, I think we really need to talk about this, right? This is an important, thing we need to hash out for, the future of Vanilla Plus. Because if you're just haphazardly adding, I'm just going to add a fucking healing fruit to the game, guys. What are the rules behind it? Fuck it, just add it. I'm just going to add it to the game. That's how you bury yourself under a bunch of idiotic design. Okay, when you don't have a kind of thesis or a kind of cohesive philosophy behind what consume should be and what they shouldn't be, right? So anyway, that's pretty much all. Rant over. Thanks, guys.